An unexpected wardrobe mishap at work. The Millionaire CEO reacted differently. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The conference room feels colder than it should, not because of the air conditioning, but because of the silence. The kind of silence that makes every breath sound too loud, every movement feel exposed. At the front of the room, the presentation slide glows against the wall, filled with charts and numbers that matter far more than anyone wants to admit. She stands there with a folder pressed lightly against her chest, fingers tight around the edges. This meeting is not just another meeting for her. It is the meeting, the one that decides whether her contract will be extended or quietly allowed to expire. The one that could mean stability or another round of job applications and rejection emails. She clears her throat and begins to speak. Her voice is steady at first. She has practiced this. Late nights at her small apartment, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, rehearsing every sentence until she knows it by heart. She talks about projections, timelines, cost efficiency. She does everything right. And then, in the smallest, cruelest moment, something goes wrong. It is quick, almost invisible. A minor wardrobe mishap that happens at the worst possible time. She feels it before she fully understands it. A sudden rush of heat to her face, her heart dropping hard into her stomach. She pauses for half a second too long. Around the table, reactions ripple quietly. Someone shifts in their chair. Someone else looks down at their notes a little too fast. A few people exchange glances and then pretend nothing happened. No one says anything, but everyone notices. Her mind races. This cannot be how it ends, she thinks. Not like this. Not over something so small, so human. She forces herself to keep going, her voice slightly tighter now, her shoulders squared, as if she can physically hold her composure in place. At the far end of the table, a man sits quietly, hands folded, posture relaxed. He does not wear an expensive suit. In fact, compared to the others, he looks almost out of place. No flashy watch, no power seat, no introduction at the start of the meeting. Most people assume he is just another observer, a consultant maybe, someone who does not really matter. But his eyes are sharp. He notices everything. He sees the moment it happens. He sees the way her confidence wavers, just for a breath. He also sees how quickly she recovers, how she refuses to let embarrassment define her. And unlike the others, he does not look away out of discomfort. He does not stare either. Instead, his expression changes. While the room stays frozen in polite avoidance, he leans forward slightly, just enough to matter. When she finishes her sentence, he speaks up, his voice calm and measured. He asks a question, not about her mistake, not about her appearance, about her work. A smart question, a fair one. One that pulls the focus back to the data on the screen, back to her preparation, back to what actually matters. Heads turn, pens move. The room shifts with him. Grateful but confused, she answers, meeting his eyes for the first time. There is no judgment there, only attention. She does not know it yet, but the quiet man at the end of the table is not who everyone thinks he is. And that single, deliberate choice he just made will change far more than the direction of this meeting. The meeting does not end right away. After she answers his question, the room slowly returns to its usual rhythm. Chairs shift. Someone clears their throat. The manager at the head of the table nods and gestures for her to continue. On the surface, everything looks normal again. But beneath it, something has changed. She feels it. Her hands are steadier now. Her voice finds its pace. She finishes the presentation without another pause, without another mistake. When she finally sits down, her pulse is still racing, but there is a strange sense of relief in her chest. She made it through. As the discussion moves on, she keeps her eyes on the notes in front of her, but she is aware of him in the background, the quiet man at the end of the table. She does not look back, yet she knows he is listening. Not to the politics of the room, not to who is speaking the loudest, but to how people behave when no one expects consequences. And he is taking mental notes. The meeting wraps up 10 minutes later. People stand quickly, gathering laptops and papers, conversations already shifting to lunch plans and deadlines. No one mentions what happened. No one checks on her. That is how these places work. You survive on your own. She gathers her things more slowly. As she steps into the hallway, the adrenaline finally drains from her body. Her shoulders drop. She exhales, long and quiet, leaning against the cool wall for just a second. She tells herself to breathe, to stay professional, to not let a single awkward moment undo months of effort. You handled that well. The voice catches her off guard. She turns and sees him standing a few feet away, holding a tablet under one arm. Up close, he looks even more ordinary. Early 40s maybe, calm eyes, no trace of the power she would later learn he holds. "I am sorry," she says instinctively. "I did not mean to interrupt the flow of the meeting." He shakes his head. "You did not. Things happen. What matters is how you recover." There is no pity in his tone, no hidden meaning, just a simple statement of fact. That is what makes it different. "Thank you," she says quietly. He nods once, then steps aside to let her pass. The exchange lasts less than 30 seconds, but she carries it with her all the way back to her desk. Across the floor, he watches her go. From his position, he sees the full picture. The way certain managers avoided eye contact. The way one supervisor smirked, then quickly looked away. The way no one intervened until he did. This was exactly why he came undercover. Not to check numbers or profits, but to observe culture. To see how people treat someone with less power when they think it does not matter. And now, he has his answer. Later that afternoon, she receives an email from her direct manager. It is short, too short. "Come by my office before you leave today." Her stomach tightens. She spends the rest of the day distracted, replaying the meeting in her head. Did she seem unprofessional? Did someone complain? She reminds herself that she did everything she could, but doubt is louder than logic. When she finally knocks on the office door, the manager barely looks up. "Close the door," he says. She does. He leans back in his chair, folding his arms. "You know how important first impressions are in this company," he begins. "We expect a certain standard." She nods, already bracing herself. Before he can continue, there is a knock. The door opens without waiting for an answer. The quiet man from the meeting steps inside. "Sorry to interrupt," he says evenly, "but I would like to join this conversation." The manager straightens instantly. His tone changes. "Of course. I did not realize you were still here." The man closes the door behind him. He looks at her briefly, then back at the manager. "I was observing today's meeting," he says, "and I think we need to talk about standards. Specifically, how we treat people when they are vulnerable." The room goes very still. She has no idea who he really is yet. But for the first time since she walked into that building, she feels something unexpected. She is not standing alone. The manager clears his throat, suddenly aware that the balance of the room has shifted. "I was simply addressing a concern," he says carefully. "We have expectations here. Professionalism matters." The quiet man does not raise his voice. He does not argue. He only nods, as if he expected that response. "Professionalism goes both ways," he replies. "I watched the entire meeting. I watched how quickly everyone noticed the mistake, and I watched how no one stepped in." The manager forces a thin smile. "With respect, it was not my role to interrupt." "That is interesting," the man says, "because I did interrupt, and the meeting continued just fine." The air grows heavier with each word. She stands there, hands folded in front of her, heart pounding. She does not understand why this stranger is doing this for her. She only knows that every instinct tells her to stay quiet, to not make this worse. The man turns slightly toward her. "Do you mind waiting outside for a moment?" he asks gently. She hesitates, then nods. "Of course." As she steps into the hallway and the door closes behind her, she presses her palm lightly against the wall, grounding herself. She can hear muffled voices inside the office, but not the words. She does not know what will come of this conversation. All she knows is that for the first time, someone is asking questions she was never allowed to ask herself. Inside the office, the tone changes. The manager sits straighter now, his confidence fading. "I am not sure why this is necessary," he says. "She is new, mistakes happen. We address them and move on." "That depends on how you define a mistake," the man replies. "She prepared thoroughly. She delivered accurate information. She recovered under pressure." He pauses. The only mistake I saw was how quickly you were ready to frame the situation as a liability instead of an opportunity to show leadership." The manager swallows. "Are you suggesting I handled it poorly?" "I am suggesting," the man says calmly, "that how leaders act in moments like that tells me more than any quarterly report." Silence stretches between them. The man steps closer to the desk. "Let me ask you something. If she had been a senior analyst instead of a contract employee, would this conversation be happening?" The manager does not answer. "That is what I thought," the man says. He straightens, smoothing his jacket. "This company prides itself on values, respect, accountability. Those are not slogans, they are standards." The manager's voice drops. "May I ask what authority you are speaking with right now?" The man meets his eyes. "You may, but not yet." A moment later, the door opens. She looks up, startled, as both men step into the hallway. The manager avoids her gaze completely. "You may go for the day," the quiet man says to her. "No penalty, no record. You did your job." "Thank you," she says softly, unsure what else to say. As she walks toward the elevators, her thoughts spin. She feels shaken, but not in the way she expected. Something inside her has shifted. A small, stubborn spark of self-respect that refuses to dim. Behind her, the man watches until the elevator doors close. He pulls his phone from his pocket and scrolls through his messages. One stands out. "Board meeting confirmed. Tomorrow morning." He exhales slowly. Tomorrow, he will stop observing. Tomorrow, he will reveal who he is. And when he does, this company is going to learn that true power is not about titles or fear. It is about what you choose to protect when no one thinks you are watching. The next morning, the building feels different to her. It is subtle, but she senses it the moment she steps through the revolving doors. Conversations pause when she walks by. Not long enough to be obvious, but long enough to notice. She keeps her head down, badge swinging lightly against her blazer, reminding herself to stay focused. One day at a time, that is all she can control. Her inbox is unusually quiet. No follow-up email, no warning, no clarification. Part of her is relieved, another part is uneasy. Silence, in her experience, is rarely neutral. At 10 sharp, a company-wide calendar alert pops up on every screen. Mandatory executive meeting, main conference hall. She frowns. She has never been invited to one of these before. Contract staff usually hear about decisions days later, through filtered messages and polite summaries. She assumes this one has nothing to do with her. She is wrong. As she settles into her chair, the quiet man enters the room. This time he does not sit at the end. He walks to the front. A murmur spreads across the hall. Chairs shift, backs straighten. Senior managers glance at one another, confused and suddenly alert. The man waits patiently until the room settles, then places both hands on the table. "Good morning," he says. "Thank you all for being here on short notice." Her breath catches. Something in his posture is different now. Still calm, still controlled, but unmistakably authoritative. This is not the observer from yesterday. This is someone who expects to be listened to. "My name is Daniel Harper," he continues. "I am the founder and chief executive officer of this company." The room freezes. She feels the words hit her like a physical force. Founder, chief executive officer. Her mind flashes back to the meeting. The question he asked, the way everyone deferred without realizing why. The conversation outside the manager's office. Her heart begins to pound. "I have spent the past 2 weeks attending meetings without introductions," Daniel says, sitting in the background, listening, watching, not to assess performance metrics, but to assess character. Eyes shift uncomfortably across the room. "Yesterday," he continues, "I witnessed a moment that revealed more about our culture than any report ever could." He pauses, letting the silence stretch. "A young professional stood in front of you, prepared, capable, and under pressure. When she faced an unexpected situation, most of you chose comfort over courage. You chose silence." Her face grows warm as she realizes he is talking about her. She sinks slightly into her seat, wishing she could disappear. Daniel's gaze sweeps the room. One person tried to turn that moment into a liability. Another chose to protect dignity without spectacle. He turns, finally meeting her eyes. She holds her breath. "That is the difference between authority and leadership," he says. The manager from yesterday shifts in his seat, color draining from his face. "Effective immediately," Daniel continues. We will be reviewing how our leaders handle moments of vulnerability. Promotions, renewals, and contracts will reflect not just results, but values. A ripple of shock moves through the room. Daniel steps back slightly. As for you, he says, addressing her directly now, your work spoke for itself long before yesterday. You did not need saving, but you deserved support. The room is silent. After this meeting, he adds, my office will follow up with you regarding your position. She nods slowly, still trying to process what is happening. The meeting ends shortly after, but no one rushes out this time. Conversations are hushed, faces are thoughtful, some are pale. She remains seated, hands folded in her lap, heart racing. She does not know what comes next. She only knows that everything changed the moment Daniel Harper decided to stop watching and start leading. And somehow, without meaning to, she has become part of that change. After the meeting, she does not return to her desk. An assistant she has never met approaches her quietly and asks her to follow. The walk down the hallway feels unreal, like she is watching herself from a distance. Doors that were always closed now open without hesitation. People step aside. Some smile politely. Others avoid her eyes. She is led into a bright office overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, calm space. Daniel Harper stands near the window, hands in his pockets, watching traffic move far below. Please, have a seat, he says, turning to face her. She sits carefully, back straight, unsure what is expected of her now. The room smells faintly of coffee and polished wood. Everything about it feels deliberate. I want to be clear, Daniel begins. Yesterday and today were not about you being embarrassed or rescued or singled out for sympathy. She nods, listening. They were about choices, he continues, yours and mine. He sits across from her. You could have shut down in that meeting. Many people would have. Instead, you stayed present. You kept going. That tells me something. She hesitates before speaking. I did not feel brave, she admits. I felt trapped. Daniel smiles slightly. Most courage feels that way in the moment. He slides a folder across the desk toward her. This is an offer for a full-time position, effective immediately. Competitive salary, benefits, and a clear growth path. Her breath catches. She does not open the folder yet. This is not a reward for yesterday, he says. It is recognition for the work you were already doing. Yesterday simply confirmed what I suspected. She finally looks down, scanning the first page. The numbers make her heart race. This changes everything. Rent, stability, the constant fear of being replaceable. I do not know what to say, she whispers. Say yes if it feels right, Daniel replies. Say no if it does not. Either way, know that you earned this. She looks up at him. Why go undercover? She asks softly. Daniel leans back. Because titles distort behavior. When people think power is watching, they perform. When they think no one important is paying attention, they reveal who they really are. She absorbs his words slowly. I wanted to see the truth, he adds, and yesterday, you showed me yours. She signs the offer with a steady hand. As she stands to leave, Daniel speaks again. One more thing. I would like you to work directly with my team on the culture initiative we discussed, if you are willing. She pauses, surprised. Me? You noticed the room before I did, he says. You felt the pressure before anyone else acknowledged it. That perspective matters. She nods, emotion tightening her throat. I will do my best. I know you will, he says. Later that evening, she steps out of the building into the cool air, the city glowing around her. The day has been long, overwhelming, transformative. Her phone buzzes with a message from Daniel. Dinner tomorrow, no agenda, just conversation, if you are comfortable. She smiles to herself, slipping the phone back into her bag. For the first time in a long time, she is not thinking about survival. She is thinking about possibility. And somewhere high above the city, a man who once chose to watch quietly has chosen something else entirely. Not just to lead a company, but to stand beside the woman who reminded him why he built it in the first place. Dinner happens the next evening at a quiet restaurant just off the main avenue. Nothing extravagant, no private room, no reservation under a powerful name. When she arrives, Daniel is already there, seated near the window, jacket draped over the back of his chair. He stands when he sees her, polite and unhurried, like this meeting matters for the right reasons. "I'm glad you came," he says. "So am I," she replies, surprised that she means it. They order simply, comfort food, the kind of place where conversations linger longer than the plates. For a moment, neither of them rushes to fill the silence. It is not awkward, it is thoughtful. "You look different today," Daniel says gently. She smiles. "I feel different, lighter maybe, like I am not bracing for impact anymore." He nods. That constant readiness takes a toll. I have seen it in many people. I have felt it myself. She studies him for a second. "You do not seem like someone who has to worry about being overlooked." Daniel exhales slowly. Power protects you from some things. It does not protect you from loneliness, or from realizing too late that you built something impressive without building connection. She listens closely. This is the first time he sounds vulnerable. "I started this company to prove something," he continues. "At first, it was about survival, then control. Somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask how the people inside it were surviving." She thinks about the meeting room, the silence, the way people looked away. "I think people want to do the right thing," she says carefully. "They just need to know it is safe to do so." Daniel smiles at that. "That is exactly why I asked you to be part of the culture initiative." The food arrives, and with it, an easy rhythm. They talk about her background, her first job, the way she learned to adapt quickly because she had to. He talks about his early failures, the nights he slept in his office, convincing himself exhaustion was a badge of honor. At some point, the conversation softens. "I want to be honest with you," Daniel says. "This is not a business dinner. I would not invite you if it were." She meets his eyes, steady. "I appreciate that. I also want you to know," he continues, "that there is no expectation here, no pressure, no imbalance." She considers his words, then nods. "Then I will be honest too. Yesterday changed how I see myself. Not because of the offer, because someone chose to stand beside me without needing credit." Daniel does not look away. That is how trust begins. When dinner ends, they walk outside together. The city hums around them, warm lights reflecting off the pavement. At the corner, they stop. "I will see you at work," she says. "Yes," he replies. "And I hope we keep talking, at whatever pace feels right." She smiles, genuine and unguarded. "I would like that." As she walks away, Daniel watches her go, not with ownership, but with quiet respect. He knows this story is not about rescue or status. It is about two people who recognized each other in a moment of truth. And for the first time in years, he feels something shift inside him. Not control, not strategy, but the simple, steady pull of choosing connection over distance. The shift does not happen all at once. At first, it shows up in small ways, subtle ones. A pause before someone speaks. A second glance before a decision is made. Meetings feel quieter, more careful. People are watching themselves now. She notices it immediately. As she settles into her new role, working closely with the Culture Initiative, she begins sitting in rooms she was never invited into before. Rooms where strategy is discussed, where words carry weight. Some people welcome her presence. Others tolerate it. A few clearly resent it. The tension comes to a head 1 week later. She is presenting a preliminary proposal to a group of department leads. It is thoughtful, practical, rooted in what she observed from the ground level. Clear guidelines, accountability without humiliation, support without favoritism. When she finishes, the room is quiet. Then the same manager from before leans back in his chair. "With all due respect," he says, voice smooth but sharp underneath, "this feels idealistic. We are here to drive results, not manage feelings." A familiar tightness forms in her chest, the old reflex to shrink, to soften, to retreat. She takes a breath. "This is not about feelings," she replies evenly. "It is about performance under pressure. People do better work when they know dignity is not optional." He scoffs lightly. "Easy to say when the chief executive officer is backing you." The room stills. Before she can respond, Daniel speaks. "That will be enough," he says. Not loudly, not angrily, just enough to end the exchange. The manager stiffens. "I am simply raising a concern." And I am addressing it, Daniel replies. Publicly undermining someone for doing the work I asked them to do is not leadership. The silence that follows is heavier than before. After the meeting, she finds Daniel in the hallway. I did not want to create friction, she says quietly. You did not, he answers. You revealed it. She studies his face. This is harder than I expected. He nods. Change always is, especially for those who benefited from the old rules. That night, doubt creeps in. She sits alone in her apartment, laptop closed, lights dimmed. She wonders if she stepped into something too big, if proximity to power will cost her credibility, if people will always assume she is here because of him, not because of her work. Her phone buzzes. Daniel, are you all right? She hesitates, then types back. I am trying to be. A moment passes. Daniel, you do not have to be strong all the time, but you do have to be honest, with yourself especially. The next morning, the pressure intensifies. Anonymous feedback begins circulating, comments questioning her qualifications, her intentions, her influence. Nothing explicit, nothing actionable, just enough to sting. She brings it to Daniel. I can handle criticism, she says, but I do not want this to compromise what we are building. Daniel listens carefully. Then let us address it the right way. That afternoon, he calls a leadership session. This initiative does not belong to one person, he tells them. It belongs to this company, and it will succeed or fail based on how seriously we take accountability. He pauses. And let me be clear, any attempt to discredit someone through insinuation rather than dialogue will be treated as a failure of leadership. Eyes drop. Notes are taken. Later, as they walk out together, she looks at him. Thank you, she says. For what? He asks. For not protecting me quietly. Daniel smiles. Respect is public. Anything else is theater. She realizes then that this moment is another test. Not of courage this time, but of alignment. And she knows, without hesitation, that she is exactly where she is meant to be. The real test arrives quietly. Not in a meeting, not in a confrontation, but in an invitation. An email goes out company-wide announcing a major internal event, a public forum. Leadership, employees, board members, and external partners will attend. Daniel frames it as a turning point, a chance to articulate values, not just enforce them. At the bottom of the message, one line stands out, opening remarks by Daniel Harper and the Culture Initiative lead. Her name follows. She reads it twice, then a third time, her pulse quickening. This is different. This is public, visible, unavoidable. When she walks into the auditorium on the day of the event, she feels the weight of it immediately. Hundreds of eyes, conversations tapering off as people take their seats. She adjusts the microphone, hands steady, breath measured. Daniel stands beside her, calm as ever. You do not have to carry this alone, he says quietly. She nods. I know, but I need to speak for myself. He smiles, approving. I was hoping you would say that. The lights dim slightly. The room settles. Daniel begins. He talks about growth, about responsibility, about why he chose to step back and observe before stepping forward again. His words are thoughtful, precise. When he finishes, he turns to her and steps aside. The moment stretches. She looks out at the audience, faces she recognizes, faces that once looked away, faces that are now waiting. I was not supposed to be here, she begins. Not on this stage, not in this role. A ripple of attention moves through the room. I came into this company as a contract employee, grateful for the opportunity, careful not to take up too much space. Like many people, I learned quickly that silence can feel safer than honesty. She pauses. Until one day, silence became the problem. She does not describe the meeting in detail. She does not need to. Everyone knows. Instead, she speaks about what followed, about the difference between being noticed and being supported, about the cost of pretending nothing happened. This initiative is not about perfection, she says. It is about response, about who we choose to be when something goes wrong. The room is still. When leadership protects dignity, people do not weaken. They rise. When she finishes, there is no immediate applause, just a moment of reflection. Then, slowly, the clapping begins. It grows, steady and genuine. Afterward, as the crowd disperses, she feels lighter than she has in weeks, not because she was praised, but because she was heard. Later that evening, she and Daniel stand near the edge of the terrace overlooking the city. "You were brave today," he says. She shakes her head. "I was honest." "That is rarer," he replies. She looks at him, really looks at him. Not as a chief executive officer, not as a symbol of power, but as a man who chose to listen and then chose to act. "This is bigger than us now," she says. Daniel nods. "That is how you know it matters." For the first time, she understands the full arc of what began with a quiet question in a meeting room. It was never about a single moment. It was about what happens when someone decides that dignity is worth defending, even when it costs comfort, even when it changes everything. The weeks that follow feel quieter, but deeper. The company begins to change in ways that do not make headlines. Conversations sound different. Interruptions are fewer. When mistakes happen, people address them instead of burying them. Not perfectly, not overnight, but honestly. She notices it most in the small moments. A junior analyst speaking up without being dismissed. A manager pausing before reacting. A meeting where silence is replaced by support. Her role evolves naturally. No announcements, no spectacle. Just trust built through consistency. People come to her office to talk. Not to complain, but to understand. To ask how to do better. Daniel watches it all with quiet satisfaction. One evening, after a long day, they walk together through the nearly empty building. The city outside glows through the glass, steady and familiar now. "You changed this place," he says. She stops and turns to him. "No, you did. You just needed someone to remind you what you wanted it to stand for." Daniel considers that. Maybe. Or maybe leadership is simply recognizing the right voice when it appears. They step outside, the cool air wrapping around them. For a moment, neither speaks. "I want you to know something," she says finally. "Whatever happens between us, this work matters to me. I did not find my voice because of a title or a relationship. I found it because someone believed it was worth protecting." Daniel meets her gaze. "That is exactly why I respect you." Time passes. Their connection grows. Slowly and deliberately. No rush, no imbalance. Two people choosing honesty over assumption, presence over power. When they sit together now, it feels earned. Months later, at another company gathering, Daniel stands beside her again. But this time, no one is surprised. They see her not as an exception, but as an example. At the end of the night, as the room empties, she looks back at the place where it all began. A simple meeting room, a moment that could have been forgotten. "It is strange," she says softly, "how something so small changed everything." Daniel smiles. The smallest choices often do. They leave together, not as a rescue story, not as a fairy tale, but as something quieter and stronger. A reminder that dignity does not need an audience, that leadership is revealed in restraint, and that sometimes the most powerful reaction is not to look away, but to stand up when it counts. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for more stories like this. And tell us in the comments, would you have spoken up in that room, or would you have stayed silent? Until next time, remember this: true power does not stare, it steps in.